Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which can simply be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. I personally am a value theorist. As I'm not good at math, so I'm not good at the science side that uses a lot of calculus, but what I try to do is apply a real-world type of critical thinking to my humanism, in a way that I approach ethics, in a way that I approach value in the world. I'm here with an amazing guest. Could you go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about you?
Hi, thank you, Damien, for having me on your show. My name is Debra Van Neste, and I run an anti-cult organization called Thinking Agenda, and we're really trying to emphasize critical thinking. I am an out-of-the-closet atheist, and I do believe in rational and logical thought.
Well, I think everyone should really believe in rational and logical thought. Sadly, though, they don't, and which is why I do agree with you, and I really appreciate what you're doing. It's a real service to humanity. We needed both issues, the understanding the destructive nature of cults and the value of critical thinking.
I think when it comes to coming out of a cult, there's a process of feeling very hurt, wounded, traumatized. When I was involved in two cultish situations. One was when I was 14, I was in Jesus People USA between the ages of 14 and 17, which had a lot of scandals.
Could you go ahead and tell a little bit about it? Because I don't personally know about that, so you could, and maybe someone else doesn't either. Could you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. Jesus People USA is a Christian commune or community where people all live together under the same roof. And it's usually run by a council of people. They go out and they preach the gospel and evangelical witnessing. They have a band called Resurrection Band. And they have a very cult-like structure to their hierarchy. I've seen children being having the rod and being beaten by the rod. I've seen where your thoughts are controlled. You're told to repent. You're constantly asked, "Are you thinking evil thoughts?" You need to pray. We got up at 4 a.m. and we had to pray and we had to study the Bible. Wow. So it had a very it fit the criteria of a very cultish organization, but it got a lot worse after I left. After I left, a lot of people were coming out and talking, and they were sexually abused and very traumatized by the organization. And I was in at the very grassroots level when it was just forming, but it was still harmful and had a lot of red flags to become a cult, which is what happened later on. Now they claim they cleaned up their act and they no longer have that kind of hierarchy or power structure. I have no idea if that's true or not. They've been wanting me to rescind my statements on them for a while now, but I won't do it because that's what I experienced. And people should know about red flags and be aware. So there's a little bit of a hostile point between me and Jesus People USA. They're based in Chicago. They still have a commune structure. They live in a big building now, like an office building. And it's kind of, everything's inward. There's school, everything's inside this building, and structured. So, and then later on, I was involved kind of in a smaller sect, SECT, with a Swami, because I was seeking still meaning in my life, and I was still very deluded by belief systems and was in a very destructive relationship with a Swami. He's not well known at all. He's still kicking around with just a few members. And I wrote a blog about my whole experience, a very narcissistic situation and very abusive. And that's what finally had me wake up to, why do we believe and why do we need beliefs? And after I went through the psychology of just dealing with my trauma, I had to really come to a point in my life on my thinking. in why I think this way. Why do I gravitate towards this? And that's what started to open me up to critical thinking and rational thought. And I think people who have come out of cults are not quite at that level yet. They kind of have to go through a process. And then I think that's kind of what I call aftercare.
Oh, yes.
It's not something right away. Like if right away someone said, well, you need to, study critical thinking, that was your problem, I would have just, shirked. It took me a few years to finally question myself and say, why did I believe him? Why do I believe in something outside of myself? Why, and all that led to a very, a journey of wanting to help other people in cults, of offering education, advocacy. We're a very aggressive PR group, and we get your story out, your word out, and we work for free. We don't charge anybody. So if you have a story and it could be verified and referenced, we'll get it out everywhere. I have the largest platform on cults on Facebook, and we work very closely with other leaders and experts, and we've really enjoyed our relationship with you, Damien. You brought a lot to the table, and you really make me think. Every time I read your post, it makes me think, and it pushes me a little further. And I hope we can work together in the future, because you are so underrated, and you are so such a gifted thinker. And I hope that people realize that and appreciate you.
Well, I thank you. And I really wanted to touch on, before I speak about myself a little bit, I want to touch on that I really feel for the abuse that you experienced. I really want to say that it always hurts me to hear about people that have experienced, that kind of a cult situation. But all abuse. I hate abuse. The scars that other people make in a moment, we have to carry for a lifetime.
Exactly. And abuse and undue influence it's not just in religious cults.
No.
There's, we also, put out a lot of awareness on human trafficking, on narcissism, on, not all cults are religious and not all religions are cults. And that's a big fallacy.
I agree.
So there's cults in multi-level marketing, there's cults in business, there can be a cult about horses, anything. It's just what cult is about, behaviors and practices and indoctrination. So, and not about beliefs. And that's a very sticky subject too with critical thinking.
Yeah, I want to give my opinion on it. I actually was raised in a cult until 13. So it was called the local church. They also actually sued someone because there was a person that put them in a book of cults, and then they put all this litigation to try to get them to sue them to take it out. Yeah, I go, just like a cult would do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They acted very.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was say, so I went through that, a lot of abuse. In fact, I had my tailbone broken by my father by hitting me with a 2x4. As a form of spanking, of course, that's why.
I saw the rod being used on very little children at Jesus People USA.
Oh yeah.
Like 2-year-olds.
My father went to school and told the principal, not only do you have permission to spank if appropriate, I want every time he does something wrong to involve spanking. And the principal was so shocked and scared and mortified by what he said that he actually, when I did get in trouble for doing it, I shot someone with a BB gun at the school. And he was so mortified, though, with my father. When I came in there, he goes, I'm not going to spank you. He goes, I know you're getting abused at home. And I thought, too, how bad he understands and still doesn't call the police.
Yeah.
And it is shocked me. Well, this is important for why I try to do so much, just probably like you do. I saw no one was speaking out for the victim. Here I was, and he even knew that I was being abused and did nothing. Worse than that, here's another thing about how bad I was being abused. I was being so abused that with lack of food, he would send me to school with a half a banana. And he would make me eat a raw clove of garlic every morning. Just chew it and eat it. The school called him and said, I cannot come to school anymore if you make him eat raw garlic, because his breath is so hideous. Well, let me tell you, garlic burns. But
It does.
But I starved. I started breaking into people's houses to steal food. I started breaking in my own house, and he put a lock on it. I went to school. I started stealing kids' lunches. But trying not to be just a bully, I would take like one piece, a half a sandwich, an orange or something, or whatever. And so I ended up, the school found out because I'm bothering all these kids, taking their lunch. And they're like, why do you take it? I said, I have no lunch. I said, well, where's your lunch? I said, I don't get one.
I know. So my parents really, I was really out of control, and I was got saved on the street with Jesus people, and then I told my parents, and my parents were like so happy because they could kind of dump me off of some other organization that could deal with me, and it was a very controlling organization. You're under a buddy, and you can't even go to the bathroom unless you ask your buddy. Wow. And it's a very manipulation is and indoctrination is a criteria of cults, and you had everything of your day was completely controlled. You were never free to just take a walk or ride your bike, or you could not talk to a neighbor. You could not talk to anybody outside of Jesus people. And that was just way in the beginning, but there was like 40 of us. Now they have, thousands of people in that organization and several hundred living in the same building in Chicago.
Yeah, but my situation is kind of similar in the local church. They have one person who is a pastor, but they don't call him a pastor, and he's the leader, but they don't call him the leader. And they all go and like build his house and for him and do all this stuff, but yet he's not anything. And they'll watch a video of him speaking in their sermons because they have several churches. And so I went to one in Huntington Beach that wasn't the main one. And so we watch a video of him, but then I said, how is that not a pastor? Even as a child, it didn't make sense. How is this person we're listening to not a leader, not a pastor, and yet we can only listen to just him? I mean, it's bizarre. But like cults don't make sense. They're just bizarre because they're trying to control. Yeah.
Well, back even because I go further than 20 years past. I mean, because I'm quite older, but back in the 70s, nobody knew about cults. So these type of organizations that would spring up, nobody red flagged them because we just didn't know. We didn't know about the word. So, if I was to tell somebody, well, in Jesus people, I sometimes can't go to the bathroom for 6 hours because my buddy would just say no. That's being selfish that you have to go to the bathroom. You're going to hold it in for 6 hours. Nobody would have said that's a cult, So it just wasn't aware. Now, even in the past 10 years, there's a lot of awareness on cults, and cults are in the newsfeed nonstop, and there's all kinds of things with the Scientology has been featured, and NXIVM, the lawsuit is a continuation of a lawsuit with them. Jehovah's Witnesses and all the clergy abuse is coming. But back in my day, they didn't know anything. They were, they weren't even deprogrammers in those days. So, it was very hidden. Now, a lot of even lay people know about cults and everything, but cults always go by certain characteristics, and that's what the legal and psychological definitions go by, not Webster's dictionary or beliefs, but goes by certain criteria is how something is determined to be a cult, and definitely what you experience.
Oh yeah, and they're real cloistered. They have a building. You're not supposed to talk. We did not watch TV. I did not watch TV or a movie or no radio except religious ones until I got out at 13. My dad, in fact, had a TV locked in his room in his closet that he would open the door and we could watch one show a week. The Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. That's it. That is the only thing TV was for. Other than that, he did stock prices, and then we listened to religion constantly. That's it.
Yeah, same thing. Because I lived actually in the ministry itself, and then I would go home They did allow me to go home because what happened is my parents got converted, but my parents were not in a situation where they were going to move into the ministry. So I lived there like most of the time, and then I would visit them, my parents, and I always felt very disassociated because I came from a very controlled environment, as you said. You couldn't watch anything, you couldn't go out for a walk, you couldn't eat what you wanted. I couldn't say, hey, I'm going to the store and buy an ice cream. No, that's selfishness. Plus, we didn't have any money. Everything was controlled by, Jesus people, you would say, that I lived with. So I would go home, and all of a sudden, I would have like freedom to take a walk, and it would like disassociated me. Like I would literally stay in my room and just read the Bible because I couldn't cope. And that's what happens a lot with people who come out of cults. They have a hard time adjusting. They don't know how to open a bank account. They don't know how to take a bus. They don't know how to make decisions. And this is very important that we help people out of high demand groups or cults to adjust to life. And that's why critical thinking has to come later, because they don't even maybe know how to use a search engine. A lot of cults, you can't be on the internet. You can't search for anything, because it might have something bad about that cult, because now we live in an electronic age and we could look up anything. Back in my days, there was no internet, so we were cut off from TV and radio and music. Now, a lot of people speak up against cults and groups, and they don't want you to find out, so a big red flag is when you can't access information.
Oh, I'm sure that if I was a kid back then, and they had internet, I'm sure we didn't watch TV, radio, anything else. I couldn't go to friends' house. They couldn't come to me unless they were Christian, period. Or actually, not even Christian. They had to be part of our cult, period. I said that incorrectly. And in fact, I only had one time that a member of the cult that was close came over and visited, and that was one, and then he didn't like that, so that was stopped. I think it goes back to, like you were saying, it's a really control of information. And that's why I feel like that's one of the abuses I realized after being an atheist that I didn't really ever realize as a Christian, that I had been abused intellectually.
Yes, that's definitely a pattern of indoctrination, because the three characteristics from research is that, there must be a self-appointed, all-powerful leader.
Yep.
Usually they sit atop a type of pyramid structure, and they'll make decisions without any checks or balances.
Yep, I agree. Totally.
Usually the leader is self-appointed, and there's no checks and balances. The second characteristic is a pattern of indoctrination, which is what we went through as well.
Well, I was going to say, for my cult, not my personal cult, but the cult that I was under, the local church, Witness Lee, actually he had this rule that you couldn't do anything sexual. And one time he got really abused and all this. His son got caught for doing sex. His dad did nothing at all. In fact, he helped buy him his next home. So that was actually when the church schism, but this is after I left. This is probably when I was about 16 or something. There was a schism, maybe it was 17, I'm not sure. But there was a schism because some of the people felt that was, here they have the standard that, like you said, all these rules, but they don't apply to him or his family.
Exactly. He has no accountability, and that's one of the three main characteristics of a cult. There's others that can get quite detailed, but the process of indoctrination is what, you're basically describing, and it changes a person's behavior, without their consent, and it involves, psychological aspects such as sleep deprivation, change in diet, protein deprivation, which, you went through with not being able to eat, isolation from others, use of fear and guilt, and
I ate dog food before because I was so hungry.
And that's a very subtle process. That overtakes your will, in undue influence, and that's recognized, in court as well, so this is why we try to, as an organization, I don't cite myself as an expert, but we go to experts, and if we're stuck on anything, we know experts, and we'll say, you know, what our problem is or how do we address this. So we always try to go from a very safe, educated point of view, because I will state openly, I am not an expert in cults. To me, an expert in cults has the highest degree or has very extensive experience in dealing with cults and the process of getting people out. You can have experts on both ends of the spectrum, and there are, but we try to always provide a safe education, and we are in touch with a lot of experts.
Yeah, I think that's always a great thing, is that we rise by helping each other. And I think that there's this mentality that cults like to do, is this isolationist. And it's something that I realized was the opposite is true. Actually, it's the lack of isolation that helps us actually develop better, not that being cloistered in one thought only.
True, and that's why, we're trying to be a bridge, a bridge of advocacy, a bridge of activism by the way we'll aggressively get a news story out or investigate a news story. We're investigating 2 cults right now. I can't mention their names, but, and it might be a very long process, but, we've got some cult experts involved with investigating two cults now. And, so we feel like, we're always learning, we're always evolving, and that's what life is about. It's like, I'm not afraid to say I don't know something, or I have to research something, or I have to Google, or I have to ask an expert, because I want to provide something safe. If someone's coming to us, I want to provide the safest and best solution and answer. I don't want to harm people more by giving them misinformation or my opinion or anything like that. So, and we really enjoy, what you write about and how you kind of, for lack of a better word, you just are very graceful in the way that you, approach topics. Like, it's very friendly, very user-oriented. And we love reposting your stuff on our Critical Minds forum, and you run like the largest atheist Facebook page I've ever seen. I don't think anybody has. Well,
there's actually a few that are larger. I know one that has 300,000 and one that has 200,000.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
And 100,000. But yes, I do have a very large page. I mean, I have over almost 50,000 or something. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But yes, that is definitely one of the larger pages. And most of my stuff, I do stuff for free. I even have a Patreon where people can donate money, but there's no paywall. I'm an anti-capitalist. And also, this issue of really caring for people matters to me. Even though I'm a high-functioning sociopath, due to abuse, I was made this way by extreme abuse. I've actually helped to come out of it. It's taken me, I went to probably 20 years of counseling. I've been to marriage counseling. I've been to family counseling, group counseling, individual counseling, addictions counseling, sex counseling. I've been to all kinds of counseling. Why? Not just because of a sick person, but because I'm a person who wants to be well. And I think that there's a stigma often that if you go through stuff that somehow you're to blame. Like somehow me being beaten with a 2x4, it's me to blame that now I have a problem with empathy.
Good point.
I mean,
very good point.
I was shown brutality, and I lived in an area in Southern California with gangs. I had a friend killed, shot in the head. I had another friend go murder someone. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I come from an area of a lot of violence. I've experienced a lot of violence at home. And it turned me into someone who lacks a depth of empathy that other people seem to do naturally. But there's a difference. Because of being a rationalist and also genderqueer inside of being somewhat feminine, I want to be better. It doesn't even always matter that I know how. But this goes back to your thing. We rise by helping each other. You know what I do? I ask. I say, you know what? I don't know everything. When it comes to some emotions, I don't feel as connected. Please help me. What is going on? Like, in fact, the last 10 years being with my wife, it's been hard on her, not because I'm mean or anything, as I'm not mean, but because what I mean is a TV. She'll cry, and I don't understand. I'm not looking at her, and I look over, and she's like bawling. I'm like, whoa, what happened? What did I miss? And so I would ask her. But this is a travesty of my life due to a cult. Because it was the occult that fomented the abuse. Because I look at my parents and I go, are they evil people that would do this to me? Is my father someone who would do this to me if he didn't have a cult? And I would say probably not. Because most of his justification, even like he would, speaking of controlling and part of the cult, he would not let my mom wear dresses because he felt that was sexual. And I mean, they had to be long. Excuse me. Nothing.
Yeah, we had to wear long dresses.
Yeah, long dresses. No makeup. He took the stereo out of her car so she wouldn't be tempted by sin to listen to music or any other non-church ideas. Of course, he could have a radio because he could control his sin, you know. But it's that environment, you know. But this also, it's the inspiration. Here I am, and I've overcome it. I'm no longer a victim. I'm not even a survivor. I have now made it to where I'm a thriver. I not only have helped myself like you, I am actually actively trying to help not just one other person, but the whole world.
Exactly. And I think you hit two really great points that I could really relate to personally, and that's the victimization, blaming people. I don't know how many times we have to toggle a response on our page that says, well, they're stupid for following him. Well, of course, monkey see as monkey does. Oh, the sheepy will follow the shepherd. You know, in cults, nobody joins willingly. You're fooled, you know, you're born into it, you're indoctrinated. People don't just join cults freely. You know, it could be a small group of friends that they want to take you somewhere to a little rally or something. And so, yeah, that's true. The victim, you know, the victim, blaming the victims is big, that we try to fight, not fight, but effectively educate on. And also you go through stages where, you know, you're first just lashing out, and then you go through healing, and you go through understanding, you know, what happened. And then, you know, you get to a point where your thinking process gets more refined and better, and you're more open to rewiring your brain. Because I kind of believe you can. I mean, I know, you know, I feel I have.
Yes, I feel I have because of my wife, but it still doesn't mean that I get it. What I have now, just like, ever heard someone who is just got to America, right? And they learn English. Their English is English, kind of. I mean, you can understand them, but it's not, you know, especially if they talk fast and they have depending on their accent, it's almost impossible to understand. Because I remember this one guy who was Chinese, right? Just to give a point, because it's funny. And he goes, I was selling things, right? And he said, "Can I buy some penis?" And I said,
"Oh yeah."
"What?" And I go, "Oh, you mean peanuts?"
I was going to think pens. I first thought pens.
Peanuts. But anyways, so that reminds me, just to help people understand in a relatable way how it is for me now with empathy. It's not that I don't now kind of understand. It's not even now that I kind of sort of don't feel it, but I don't feel it the way that, with the eloquence that everybody else seems to be able to do. But I have critical thinking and I have a will to learn. And I would say that to me is the willingness. I think that's probably the biggest thing to critical thinking, to everything. Like, how do you be a better person? Be willing. How do you be a better thinker? Be willing. How do you, become a better spouse? Be willing. I think most of it, to me, it's this.
But see, that alone of what you just said shows a great range of empathy. Perhaps your empathy is just more on an intellectual level.
It is.
And then it filters out to the heart. Well, so who's to say that's not as much as empathy going the other way? There's empathy going to the heart to the head. There's empathy going to the head to the heart. It's the same thing.
Well, I think both are valuable.
They are. and I find you to be very compassionate. In fact, you're probably the most compassionate, understanding person I have known in a long time, because, you're just, you're very kind, and you're very, you're very empathetic, and things I've told you about, you've been very understanding about. So I just think that I've learned a different functional way of showing empathy, and I mean, I don't see a lack of it in you at all.
Well, let me explain how that happened. So I didn't used to. Okay. If you would have met me at 17, you would have felt that I was a psychopath. that I was a harm and a menace to society who needed to be locked up as soon as possible for as long as possible. So, I mean, okay. I got put in a drug rehab, right? And 3 days in, I already was on homicidal awareness because I had woke up my person by wrapping a blanket around his head and beating him while he was asleep. Then I threatened to cut his throat with knives I made out of the vents. Now, I also was in school and cut a guy across the chest. And actually, it's on the documentation. I don't know why I didn't go to prison. They put me on a week suspension, and I had to write stuff and try to go to counseling. But what changed? Let me explain to you what changed. I used to be a low-functioning sociopath. In other words, everyone knew, and I was bad and terrible, and I did everything wrong possible. Didn't care about anyone or anything. In fact, to me, if you'd asked me how I felt back then, the world felt like plastic, and everything was a fake thing that the people were doing to delude other people of their real selves. That's what I would have told you. I hated the world. I equally thought everyone was worthless. And then someone gave me kindness that was unjustified. Man, that was the sweetest moment. And I looked at them and I saw they cared about me. This happened at the drug rehab. It was I was gonna be sent away to Brea Psych, to a 72-hour lockdown in a straitjacket because of being so aggressive and violent to everyone. And she goes, she was a feminist therapist. That's also what got me later into thinking about feminism. Also, I'd already, in a sense, cared about my mother, but it inspired little feminism ideas. But she was a feminist therapist, and so she was telling me, I really like it. They do transparency. It's really into when you're telling the person, you're informing them. You're not being their superior. You're getting in with them and saying, here, this is what we can do to make you better. Not my idea, but one you can take on your own. Anyways, and how she started talking to me and how she started caring about me, and I was like, I'm bad, I'm terrible. Why would this person even care? It's too late. But they cared anyways. She cared. And it blew me. I'm like, whoa, what is this kindness thing? Because I really hadn't experienced kindness in my life, and I saw and I found the beauty of kindness. Kind people like sometimes will say to me, why are you kind or thoughtful to people that are mean? And I go, you know what? They need it more than you who are nice.
Yeah, that's such a great point.
I want to show them the value of kindness is the matter of who you are. It is the heartstrings that you express to the world. Compassion is something that is able to happen when a heart is filled with kindness. True. When I'm kind in that way, how can I possibly want to hurt the world? And
you walk your talk. People might be listening to this for the first time and say, "Oh yeah, right." But let me tell you, from knowing you and watching you, you walk your talk.
Thank you.
And I've seen you in very, very heated. I've seen people attack you, and you've been patient and kind and try to have a civil conversation. Personally speaking, you've been very kind towards me and my organization. You have probably gave me so many likes on my page, and you let me share my headers. And it's true, you walk your talk, Damien. And it just seems like maybe she just tapped into something that was already there, because if it wasn't there, nobody would be able to tap into it, and you still have that heartbeat in you. And it's
look, I understand, but to me that also is acting as if somehow I have not worked. I understand your thoughtfulness is and care of your statement, but to me it's saying you didn't really work that hard, Damien. You didn't overcome that much because it was already there. You didn't do it. And let me tell you something. I have worked hard. You know what I've done? I've died to my ego. And I told this guy the other day, what is more important, your humanity or your ego? Because you have to pick one. It's not that I've made the choice for you. It's that's just the reality of the world. You have to pick your ego or you have to pick your humanity. And I'm sorry. I'm sick of standing by while everyone picks their ego. You know what? If I can realize there's a problem and I'm as brave as I am, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to address the problem that's really there. Quit attacking the people and address the actual problem.
Exactly. And that's what like with the critical thinking we want to introduce. We want to do it that way. Like we don't want people to feel intimidated because they believe in something.
No.
We just want people to be open-minded, to just, look at their minds. We like the expression mind the mind, which we may use in our course, because just go inward, just look at things from a factual, logical point of view. If you still want to believe, fine, but at least you have more awareness. Maybe there's a seed planted, and that seed will grow when you need it to grow. And, you're a really good example of that, Damien, and we hope to work with you. We really do.
Yeah, I'm willing to work with everybody. I do free presentations. I go and do stuff all the time. I want to make a positive impact in the world. I was abused. I want a world where no me is ever abused again. That's what I would like.
And it's not just in cults. It's all over. It's not just in there's true human trafficking. There's
I hate that too.
In many aspects. So that's where advocacy and critical thinking is so much needed. And this is a very strong point in my mission, for lack of a better word. And that's why I try to attract people with like minds. And you have been a very strong force and voice in my organization. And we're definitely very interested in what you have to say and put out. And to be honest, I think you're very underrated. I don't understand why, most major organizations aren't picking you up as a speaker.
I don't know.
And I don't know either, unless you are too intelligent or they're just threatened. I don't understand. It's amazing to me. So.
Even more amazing is that several people that are in organizations have acknowledged my value, have acknowledged that I do have something to offer, that I am unique. Mm-hmm. And so I really, I don't know. In fact, I even asked this last, there's a convention coming up, American Atheists, and I sent them a presentation proposal for my evolution of religion that I work on with my archaeology and anthropology mm-hmm. and history. And they never got back with me, but yeah, I'm certainly wanting.
I know, and I know I'm the Orlando chapter for American Atheists, but basically what they want you to do as a chapter is you can do anything you want. They just want you to kind of like organize a little group, and they keep you informed if anything's going on politically that you can get involved with, either writing to your politicians or picketing or bringing something to the forefront. And they're looking for a regional director in Florida that I'm interested in, but I want to be involved with something very progressive.
Yeah, I would have moved to Florida. I've lived there before.
Yeah, so I appreciate my affiliation with them, but it's not as progressive as I was hoping it would be. And so we'll just see what happens with that. But I don't understand why you're not on a major platform speaker, because you're very interesting, and you have, you're not just talking like methodically like a robot. Like you have life experience. You've been through hell and back.
Yes, I have.
It's you're not just up there like just saying, well, we should just examine our mind, and we should just it's not that with you.
Well, even examine the mind. Like a lot of people go, well, a lot of atheists make this irritating statement that I hear all the time. I have no beliefs. Actually, that itself is by definition a belief. You have a belief that you don't have beliefs.
My husband says the same thing all the time, and so he says the same thing, and because it's true. It's true, yeah.
And so my issue is actually belief etiquette. That's what I teach. I don't teach critical thinking, although I feel it is critical thinking. I don't use that word because I feel it's a catch-all. It does meaningless to what I want to do. What I want to do is help focus on the exact, precise thing that we are doing. Critical thinking is the general persuasion. That's not good enough for me. And that's also not helpful to me when it applies to people that are trying to learn something new. Because, in other words, that's like me. Well, I'm saying
user-friendly. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying it's like
have all. Yeah.
sorry. I was going to say, it's like saying that we need to learn all philosophy. That's what critical thinking is. Yes, you need to learn critical thinking, but it's too big. It's too broad. It's too hard. We need to focus on one critical thinking issue at a time. One of the biggest ones is the belief problem. That people accept beliefs, keep beliefs that are not acceptable, and then won't let beliefs go that are deemed not acceptable. And so to me, it's a belief etiquette we have to have. And that's why I have a 3-stage process, easy for people to follow, that teaches you just do this, and it is critical thinking. In other words, everything that are given to you, you should have a belief etiquette for. In other words, I have a process of how I accept, keep, or let go of beliefs. So the first one's called belief acquisition. And this has to do with your sensitivity to what is being presented. You need to say, is it feasible? Is it supported? Is it justified? Is it valid? This is before you even believe it. This is something in a way of assessing. Then, once you believe things, because believe me, you're going to believe things. And a lot of them will be actually not really acceptable, but you won't fully know. But it's the willingness that after even you've accepted a belief, that you're willing to entertain its proposition again, if needed, and look at it and go, is it still warranted? Is it still justified? Is it still reasonable? Does it really fit the evidence? Is it the best conclusion? Should I adopt a new one? Should I entertain the evidence for a new one? Then that's belief maintenance, right? So it's this thing that we all must do at all times, to all beliefs, is be willing to update, amend, or remove them. And that gets to me to the third one, which is belief relinquishment. That we need to have good belief relinquishment. In other words, that when something is wanting, no matter how much we want it, we need to be willing to let it go. Because we should be about what is true and what is right and what is demonstratable. And so to me, if you have these, if you have, a good, belief acquisition, and you have, a honest, belief maintenance, and then you have, a belief relinquishment of what is, warranted, then to me, that is critical thinking. But now I've made it, in a sense, 3 little steps, and only about beliefs.
Well, steps are good. It's very user friendly, so I'm not against that at all. It's very helpful to have things in steps and modules because people can absorb it. But also, I think the problem with beliefs as well that I have found with people and what I found in myself is that you don't bring beliefs down to that level. When you believe in something, it goes beyond reasoning because beliefs are very much linked to an emotional response system.
Oh, definitely.
And we often believe in something because we want to believe in something outside of ourselves because we don't believe we have it all inside. So we have to look at something outside of ourselves as a reflection of what we want to bring inside. So, like for me, I had kind of a saint complex. Like I was always attracted to that sort of situation. And
what does that mean for you?
And that kind of, that kind of stuff.
Well, but what kind of stuff? Can you explain what it meant to you?
I'm sorry. I always, because I was always felt to be a bad person, I always thought to be the opposite. So I was very attracted to, Christianity, and I was always very attracted to like angels, and I was always very attracted to enlightenment. And I went through a phase of being in the occult, but I considered myself a good witch. And then I got out of the occult and got attracted to Eastern mysticism because that seemed to have some kind of deep philosophical roots to it. And I was interested always in philosophy, but then it goes into, transcending the ego and enlightenment. And when I became obsessed with enlightenment, I started, following teachers that preached it, and directly and indirectly. And I finally found a Swami who was a very destructive personality, and was probably the most destructive relationship I have ever had. Jesus people was nothing. The occult was nothing. Christianity really was nothing. This one-on-one cult or sect I had with this Swami almost destroyed me completely. It was very, very hard to heal from it. He was threatening to kill himself if I left him. He would call me up and pretend he was clicking a gun and said if I ever ignored his calls again, he's going to blow his brains out. He stalked my family. He threatened to kill my husband. So it was, years of hell with him, and guilt and shame and feeling stupid, feeling like how could I let it get this far. And yet, I guess the biggest thing I had to deal with was there was a part of me that facilitated it. I was fooled, I was tricked, but there was a part of me that was just so undeveloped and so raw that when a predator came along and fed me this love bombing, you're so wonderful, Debra, you're so beautiful, Debra, I just fell like a ton of bricks for it. And I had to really address that too, because that was like my Achilles heel. Mm. And I had to address why I felt that way and why am I so easily manipulated in that way. And that was a big key for me to finally understand myself on a deeper level. But this cult I got with this Swami was very destructive. Not just to me, it affected my whole family. And that was very hard for me to forgive for myself because it almost destroyed my marriage. So it's a lot of repair inside for me with my relationship with my husband. I had cut off all my friends. I had become a really kind of, weird person dressed in orange and thinking I was enlightened. So I had to assimilate myself back into society,
Yeah. Well, I feel for you, and I also think that I'm very proud at who you've become, and I'm really thankful for all that you do. I mean, it's one thing to be in a cult, but it's a whole other thing to then champion their removal. I think that's just it's glorified.
Well, we understand, the feelings. It's very complex emotions, and it's different for everybody. So people go through all different experiences in cults. Some are sexually abused. Some are born and raised in a cult. Some are not in religious cults. Some are, it's so variable. And we just try to be a voice for them and work with people, refer people. We go under the cloak of experts' advice. So we don't know something, we go to an expert, and we are transparent in our dealings as an organization. And that's, we have a publication out called Ethics in the Modern Guru, sold on Amazon, and our website is cults.com. And we have 3 websites, but that's the main one.
What are the other websites?
Well, the other website is guruethics.com, which is all about our magazine. And then we have thinking-agenda.com, which is still in beta mode. It's got just a couple pages on it. We're trying to put like our podcast on that one and stuff like that. We're shifting things all around, but mainly it's cults.com that stays on top of cults and undue influence and everything we're doing. And, we definitely look forward to working with you in the future. And every time you have a podcast on, I'm always turning it on or up or watching it later. So we try to keep up with everything you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I know a lot of my conversations, like some people that are atheists only talk to atheists. I'm willing to talk to anybody. And even sometimes about things that have nothing to do with atheism. Because, I also want people to understand I'm about my life, too. I want to have life flourishing, and that means that I don't just focus on atheism. In fact, it reminded me one time, someone came on my page, which I really get angry when people do this, try to tell me what to post on my personal page. Like, what the fuck? But this guy comes on there and told me, don't post cat pictures. Just focus on your atheism, because it makes you look weak. And I go, you know what? If you don't like the cat pictures, you can leave. I said, I'm going to be me, who I am. I don't... and plus, I think it's wrong for us to limit ourselves. I don't think it's even healthy. I mean,
exactly, because in a cult or a high demand group, you are limited and told what to do.
Yeah.
And another thing that we have found very liberating is introducing art therapy and introducing art. And we have a huge Facebook page on Artist Heart where we celebrate the use of art as therapy.
Oh, I've done tons of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an artist myself. I'm more like a crafty person.
Right on.
And you know, so I'm not. It's not. You know, I can barely draw or paint, but it's helped me a great deal. Writing helps me a great deal too, and I love music. So we have found that to be very, very healing with ex-cult victims and survivors. So we're really promoting the arts as therapy and focusing on that quite a bit because that's your voice and your expression and your life and your definition of who you are. And so we feel like that brings a dimension to people. So we're very involved with that as well. And like you said, I talk to people all day long, and it's not always about cults either. I talk to people, you know, and I post stuff on cats and politics and I complain about, you know, my life and everything. I'm just a human being. That's true. I agree with you.
Well, yeah, because I feel like that, you know, I am becoming an atheist force, and I want to be the one that actually shows that we can be regular people. I'm not saying there's anything wrong that a lot of them are doctors and scientists and whatever, but I was a truck driver. You know, I mean, I have a psychology degree now, but I mean, I still am just a regular person, and I've always been. I come from poverty. I come from you know, cult. I do not know what it's like to be rich. Never have been rich my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not worked now for about 7 years because I had a truck accident and I got disabled. So I mean, I went from making $150,000 a year to nothing.
Yeah, that's very traumatic, Damien.
I
know you have a page now, you know, that's asking for support of your work, and I really hope that people, you know, from this conversation see that in a different light in terms of the importance of the work that you're doing, and people
I hope so.
Yeah.
And in fact, speaking of that, I have even up to you can donate just $1 because I have hundreds of thousands of friends. I mean. There's no reason why, even if people gave me $1, I wouldn't be rich.
But it would add up. If
it would
got
add up.
Even a small percentage of that, it would add up. You might just want to be more vocal about it, because what I have found in marketing is sometimes you do need repetition. Like you feel you're repeating yourself 100 times, but there might be thousands of people that are just hearing about it because so much goes to your news feed.
Oh, yeah.
Or you plan to I don't know how many times I forgot to save something. Then I go, oh, snap, I really wanted to look into that. Now where is it, you know?
Yeah.
1,000 feeds later. So repetition, you may think you're repeating yourself, say, oh, I don't know if I can post this again. But there's always somebody out there, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, who never heard of, you know, that you're looking for more support. So don't hesitate to just keep it going, you know, because the word, you know, it's not going to hurt you. You know, people are either going to give or they're not. So
I agree.
You know, people don't want to hear. They could just let it go down their news feed. But you might meet that one generous patron, or like I said, a handful of people. Even if 1,000 people gave $1 or $2, that would help. You know,
exactly. I can keep doing what I'm doing.
Exactly. Just every day, just put it out there, and maybe somebody, you know, a lot of times too, like somebody will have plans to give, or maybe they got to wait till next payday, or wait a little longer, and
I had like 2 or 3 people say that.
And then then they forget. So if you post it, then they'll say, oh yeah, let me put $10 on there now or something. So. You know, it's hard for me to repeat myself. I feel the same way, to like my page or like our, you know, we're putting some stuff up on our shop now, a gift with donation. And, you know, it's hard for me too, but that's the way I have to look at it. There's always somebody that hasn't seen it yet, you know.
True. Yeah, I just don't want people
Yeah.
to think that I'm trying to do it for money. I'm doing this because I care. I just happen to be in a place that I'm pretty soon, even worse than I am now. I'm going to have no money coming in. I'm going to have to try to figure out, I might have to get a job and stop what I'm doing. So that's why I was telling people that if you support me, I won't have to do that. I won't have to stop what I'm doing. But if not, well, then I don't expect anything from anyone. I give freely, and if they want, they can give freely. That's just how I am.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like you, give free. I want to change the world. That's my goal. I would just like to have enough money to keep doing that. That's all.
Exactly. Because when you find something you do that you love, it just overcomes you. It's like I still work at the hospital now for 20 years, and I have to work, just for our basic expenses, I have to work quite a few hours, like 40 to 60 hours weekly. And then on top of that, we have all the expenses of our organization. And, I'm trying to put stuff out in our little shop, and we're giving really generous gifts for very small donations. And it's hard, because we're also now pouring part of the money into our organization as well. But, when you love something and something is just part of you, you can't give it up. So I was telling my husband, I said, no matter how hard it gets, I'm going to renew my business license, and I'm going to keep on going forward. People have come and gone with us, have burned us raw to the crisp, and, we keep going, and we're going to keep going.
Well, I support you.
I know you do, and I believe in what you're doing and what we're doing, and, the good guys sometimes just finish last, but just don't give up, whatever you do, don't give up.
Yeah, I'm already a winner to me. I mean, I made it out of a really terrible life, and I did the one thing I finally wanted to do. I became a good person. If I died and that's all I've done, man, I've done a lot.
You've done a lot, and you will continue, and you will find people that will start getting a clue and start supporting you. And I hope this interview is a catalyst for it, because I know I will post this interview everywhere, so you'll get my full, nonstop publicity.
Thank you.
On it, all the platforms that we practice out of, so you will get.
Yeah, I'm going to post this on LinkedIn, on my YouTube. I'm going to make a blog about it. I'm going to post it on about 15 different places on Facebook.
Me too. We do the same thing, you and I, but since we have different accounts and different audience, and we have different organic audiences, we still help each other because our audiences are very different.
That's true. You said political. Yeah. I have like tons of anarchists on mine, where some people may not. Well, that's because I'm an out anarchist. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also, I'll get support from the anti-cult community, and this will be.
And I probably don't.
Like there, yeah. So we have different platforms. So even if we post in the same places, we have totally different audiences looking at us. So we'll still help each other rise at the end.
well, and I try to help a lot of people, and I do it freely. Like, someone says, "What can I do for you?" Well, do whatever you feel, but I do what I feel is right, and you do good stuff. That's why I would want to support you. That's why I try to help you, get your thing better. I think that people should donate to you. I think that it's an absolutely necessary cause, not even a worthy one, a necessary thing.
I think that in the beginning, we didn't have an organization. We just had a magazine, and then I wanted to make the commitment. To me, having an organization was like being married. I have a commitment. I have a certain code of transparency, of leadership that I want to have, and it started to shift quite a bit from having just a publication to founding an organization, and so and we just founded an organization, a little over a year ago. So we're still quite young, very young. And our magazine is only going to go on the 4th issue. So we know that we're still in growing pains, and we still have a lot to learn, but we have also come a long way for a small organization, and we're have a lot of support from experts and academics, and we're just trying to do good things. We're just trying to serve the community.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I really, if there's anything else you wanted to say or plug, go ahead. and then or ask me.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and Damien, I hope you get the support that you need to keep doing your work. You're doing wonderful work.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for giving me this platform to speak with you, have a conversation. I love the way you're just very conversational. It's something I need to work on with my interviews, because I'm kind of struggling with my podcast, and I learn a lot from the way you do things. So I'm learning from you all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was quite an honor. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Well, have a great day. And everyone, I thank you for watching, and you have a great day as well.